Beloved chosen one, this is the moment you almost scroll past, the moment you almost treat like background noise, the moment you almost dismiss because it does not arrive wrapped in thunder. Yet this is exactly how many divine turnings begin. They do not always burst through the door with spectacle. They come quietly. They come with a stirring you cannot fully explain. They come with a weight in your spirit that says, pay attention, stay here. Do not rush by this because your blessing is tied to what you do with this moment. You are not here by accident. You are not listening by mistake. Heaven knows how to interrupt your routine without asking permission from your fears. And when God places a word in front of you again and again, it is because something connected to your future is trying to reach your present before your doubt talks you out of it. You have lived through enough disappointment to become careful. You have seen doors close. You have prayed prayers that seemed to hang in silence. You have carried hope into rooms where it was not honored, and you have tried to stay soft in places that kept teaching you to harden. So now, when something sacred begins to knock, part of you wants to protect itself by acting unimpressed. Part of you wants to say, I have heard things before. I have believed before. I have waited before. But this is different. And deep down you know it is different because this does not feel like empty excitement. This feels like recognition. This feels like the kind of message that meets you where no one else can see. This feels like the kind of call that does not flatter your ego but confronts your spirit. It pulls you upright. It brings your attention back from all the places it has been scattered. It reminds you that destiny is not only about what God will do someday. Destiny is also about whether you notice what He is doing now. There are seasons when one choice carries more spiritual weight than 10 years of ordinary motion. There are moments that seem small to the eye but heavy in the kingdom. And the tragedy is that many people miss them because they are waiting for a louder sign. They are waiting for perfect conditions. They are waiting to feel fearless before they obey. They are waiting until their heart stops trembling, until their questions disappear, until the risk feels manageable. And by the time they are done waiting, the invitation has already moved on. That is why this matters. That is why you must not treat this lightly, not because God is cruel, but because timing is holy. When heaven stirs the water, it is not the hour to sleep through your own awakening. You have been under pressure, and pressure has a way of shrinking your vision until survival feels more urgent than purpose. It can make you think only about getting through the week, getting through the pain, getting through the next disappointment without breaking. But you were not created only to endure. You were created to discern. You were created to recognize when a common-looking day is carrying an uncommon assignment. You were created to hear the whisper beneath the noise. That is why your spirit has been restless. That is why you cannot fully settle into numbness. That is why, even after all you have faced, something in you still rises when truth touches it. The part of you that belongs to God still responds when heaven speaks your name. Listen carefully. The enemy does not always need to destroy you to delay you. Sometimes all that is required is distraction. Sometimes all that is required is for you to keep saying later. Later I will pray with focus. Later I will obey. Later I will confront what God has been showing me. Later I will stop entertaining what drains me. Later I will answer the call, but there is a cost to always saying later, because later becomes a lifestyle, and a lifestyle becomes a pattern, and a pattern becomes a prison that looks normal until one day you realize you have been circling the edge of your breakthrough without stepping into it. This is why this message is urgent in the deepest sense, not because it wants to frighten you, but because it wants to wake you before another precious season slips through your hands. You are closer than you think. That is why the resistance has been so strange. That is why little things have felt unusually heavy. That is why your focus has been attacked. Your energy has been drained. Your confidence has been questioned, and your passion has been pressed. Darkness does not spend this much effort on empty people. The battle around your attention is revealing the value of what is near. Your blessing is not tied to perfection. It is tied to response. It is tied to whether you will stop long enough to recognize that God is moving in a form your flesh almost ignored. So breathe for a moment and let this settle in you. You are not too late to obey. You are not too damaged to receive. You are not too overlooked to be called. What has been assigned to you has not lost your name. And what God has prepared for you has not been canceled because of the tears you cried in private or the confusion you carried in silence. But you must wake up to the seriousness of this invitation. You must stop measuring divine moments by how convenient they feel. Some of the greatest blessings enter disguised as interruption. Some of the holiest shifts begin when your schedule is broken, when your plans are unsettled, when your routine is pierced by a word that will not let you stay the same. This is that kind of moment. This is the kind of moment that divides those who hear from those who respond. This is the kind of moment that asks whether you will keep drifting or whether you will finally plant your feet and say, God, I see what you are doing, and I will not walk past it this time. Comment 999 if you know this word is reaching you at the exact right time. Let that be your sign of agreement, not with me, but with the stirring already happening inside your spirit. Because what is before you is not random, and what is attached to your yes is greater than what tried to keep you distracted. You are being called out of autopilot and into awareness, out of delay and into alignment, out of passive wishing and into active faith. The blessing is tied to this. The shift is tied to this. The next chapter is tied to whether you recognize the knock while it is still at the door. So do not brush this aside. Do not file it away as another emotional moment that fades by tomorrow. Hold it, weigh it. Let it confront you. Let it reorder you. Let it call you back to the place where obedience becomes more precious than comfort. Because heaven is not merely trying to encourage you. Heaven is trying to position you. And when God positions you, what looked like an ordinary pause becomes the threshold of a life you could not have entered any other way. You know what it feels like to be unseen. And that is why this message has to slow down here. Because many blessings are first missed in seasons where your heart has grown tired of hoping. When a person has been overlooked for too long, they do not always become loud. Sometimes they become careful. Sometimes they begin to expect less so disappointment will hurt less. Sometimes they stop reaching, not because they have no faith left, but because hidden pain has taught them to live with lowered expectation. That is the danger of being overlooked. It does not only wound your emotions, it quietly tries to retrain your spirit to stop watching for the moment God is about to bring to your door. That is why Esther fits this word so deeply. Her story is not merely about courage in a palace. It begins much earlier, in loss, in vulnerability, in a life that could have been dismissed by almost anyone passing by. Esther begins as a young woman carrying absence before she ever carries influence. She is an orphan. She knows what it means to live without the covering that should have been there. She knows what it means to grow up under conditions that do not look ideal, glorious, or favored at first glance. If anyone had judged her life too early, they would have missed what heaven had already written into it. And that is the point you must catch. What looks small in one chapter may be carrying unusual weight in the next. What looks hidden may be under divine protection. What looks like an ordinary life may already be moving toward an extraordinary assignment. There is something piercing about Esther's beginning because it reminds you that God's hand does not wait for perfect conditions to start moving. He does not only call the visibly strong, He does not only choose the people others are already celebrating. He knows how to place purpose inside a life that still bears the marks of loss. Esther's early story does not read like a triumph at first. It reads like survival. It reads like the kind of life that could easily be passed over. Yet while the surface looked ordinary, heaven was already arranging pieces behind the curtain. That is often how divine timing works. You think nothing major is happening because nothing public has happened yet. But God is already aligning rooms you have not entered, conversations you have not heard, and moments that have not arrived. This matters for you because one of the greatest mistakes a chosen person can make is assuming that hiddenness means irrelevance. Esther was not irrelevant while she was unknown. She was being positioned. She was being preserved. She was being carried toward a moment that would ask more of her than beauty, charm, or survival instinct. It would ask for discernment. It would ask for timing. It would ask whether she would recognize that her blessing was tied to a responsibility she could not afford to ignore. And this is where your own life begins to mirror hers. You may be in a season where much about your future still feels covered, but covered does not mean absent. Delayed does not mean denied. Unseen does not mean unchosen. When Esther is brought into the royal process, it would be easy to reduce the story to sudden elevation, as though her life simply changed overnight. But that would miss the deeper truth. God was not only taking Esther to a palace, He was bringing Esther to a decision. Favor was not the end of the story. It was the setting for obedience. And that is where many people get confused. They think blessing means comfort alone. They think an open door is only there to make life easier. But in sacred moments, blessing and calling often arrive together. Esther was given access, yes, but access came with weight. Position came with purpose. The door that opened before her was not only for her benefit, it was tied to the deliverance of others. You need to hear that carefully. Some doors in your life are not opening because God merely wants to reward you with visibility. Some doors are opening because there is an assignment attached to your yes. The reason this message feels heavy is that heaven is not only trying to encourage you. Heaven is trying to wake your awareness. You are closer to a meaningful moment than you realize. And if you interpret everything through comfort, you may miss the deeper call hidden inside the opportunity. Esther could have remained silent. She could have enjoyed the safety of position and told herself that someone else would carry the burden. She could have mistaken access for arrival and forgotten that favor is often given so obedience can act through it. That is why the words spoken to Esther still carry fire for you now. The scripture says, "And who knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom for such a time as this?" Esther chapter 4, verse 14. That question does not only belong to Esther. It reaches across generations because it exposes the holy pressure around timing. For such a time as this, not for some vague future, not for a season with less risk, not for a more convenient hour. For such a time as this, that is the kind of sentence that shakes a sleeping spirit awake. It tells you that the present moment may be carrying more consequence than you first assumed. It tells you that what stands before you cannot be treated casually. It tells you that heaven may have been preparing you through every hidden chapter, every lonely prayer, every misunderstood season, not so you could simply arrive somewhere impressive, but so you could answer when the decisive hour came. And that is where this word presses gently but firmly against your heart. You may have spent years grieving what was absent, mourning what was delayed, wondering why your life took such strange turns. Yet what if those very turns were preparing your inner life for the moment now approaching? Esther's power was not born the day she stepped forward. It was formed long before in hiddenness, in restraint, in learning how to carry herself under pressure, in becoming the kind of person who could discern that one moment of obedience was worth more than a long season of passive safety. So do not measure your life only by what has not happened yet. Do not reduce this chapter to what seems missing on the surface. Esther teaches you that God can take an overlooked life and tie it to a decisive hour. He can take someone hidden and place them at the center of a turning point. He can allow seasons that feel quiet, even painful, while still moving that person toward a moment they must not miss. And perhaps that is why this message has found you now, because your blessing is not floating somewhere far away from your present life. It is drawing near inside a moment that will require you to see differently, to rise differently, and to understand that hidden years were never wasted when they were preparing you for such a time as this. What makes delay so dangerous is that it rarely announces itself as rebellion. It usually arrives dressed as caution, wisdom, timing, or emotional self-protection. It tells you to wait until you feel stronger, clearer, calmer, more certain, more supported, more healed, more ready. It tells you there is no harm in pausing a little longer, no cost in holding back one more day, no consequence in keeping your response postponed until conditions become easier to manage. But that is how many people slowly drift away from the edge of obedience without ever realizing they are moving. Failure at least forces a person to confront what happened. Delay is more subtle. It works quietly. It numbs urgency. It softens conviction. It teaches the soul to live beside the call rather than step into it. That is why this part of Esther's story matters so much. By the time the crisis rises around her people, Esther is no longer the hidden orphan no one sees. She is in the palace. She has access. She has position. She has the kind of opportunity many would assume automatically guarantees action. But access does not remove the human battle inside the heart. Position does not erase fear. Favor does not cancel the pressure of choice. In fact, sometimes the closer you get to the moment that matters, the more intense the temptation becomes to remain still. Esther is living inside comfort that could easily become compromise. She is near power, yet distance can still grow inside a person who has everything needed to act except the willingness to move. This is where many chosen ones get trapped. They think the greatest threat is open failure, public collapse, or obvious sin. Yet often the greater threat is the slow surrender of urgency. It is the habit of saying, I know this matters, but not yet. I know I should respond, but let me think a little longer. I know the moment is serious, but maybe someone else will rise. That kind of hesitation feels small while it is happening, but it can become devastating because destiny is deeply tied to timing. A delayed yes can carry heavier consequences than an imperfect step taken in faith. God can work with trembling obedience. What becomes dangerous is when hesitation hardens into passivity, and passivity begins to feel normal. Esther stands in that exact tension. She has reason to fear. Approaching the king without being summoned could cost her life. This is not dramatic imagination. This is real danger. This is not a small emotional hurdle. It is a genuine crisis of risk. Yet that is what makes her story so powerful for you. The issue is not whether fear is present. The issue is whether fear is allowed to make the final decision. There are moments when obedience will not feel safe. There are moments when silence will look more attractive than courage. There are moments when the soul will try to negotiate with the call and reduce its urgency just to avoid the pain of responding. But heaven does not place these moments before you so you can study them forever. Heaven places them before you so you can discern, decide, and move. Think about how dangerous it would have been if Esther had stayed suspended in indecision. Not openly refusing, not boldly obeying, just lingering in the middle. That middle place is where so many blessings are postponed. It is where people lose spiritual sharpness. It is where conviction begins to fade under the repeated pressure of delay. A heart that keeps postponing what it already knows does not remain unchanged. Something happens to the inner ear. The voice of urgency grows fainter. The soul adapts to avoidance. And before long, what once felt pressing begins to feel optional. That is why delay can steal what fear cannot. Fear may shake you for a moment, but delay can slowly teach you to live outside your appointed response. Esther had to come to terms with a truth that you must also face. You cannot keep waiting for a moment of obedience that asks nothing from you. You cannot keep hoping that God will send an assignment requiring no courage, no sacrifice, no trembling, no surrender. The very reason these moments matter is because they reveal what rules your inner life. Do you serve comfort, or do you serve purpose? Do you protect your present peace at all costs? Or do you trust that God's will is worth the risk of your yes? Esther's greatness is not that she never felt pressure. Her greatness is that she stopped letting pressure delay the response that heaven required from her. This is why your own delay must be named honestly. Some things in your life are not waiting on more confirmation. They are waiting on your agreement. Some prayers are not unanswered because heaven is silent. They are unanswered because the next instruction has already been given, and you keep circling it, studying it, postponing it, hoping for a version that asks less of you. But the blessing is tied to the very step that feels costly. The breakthrough is tied to the very act you keep moving away from. The shift is tied to the moment you stop calling your hesitation wisdom and start recognizing it as the place where fear has been quietly negotiating with your future. And yet there is mercy here, because this word is not coming to condemn you. It is coming to wake you. It is coming to interrupt the slow drift before it becomes a pattern you accept as normal. Esther did not remain frozen forever. She reached the point where delay could no longer be entertained. She understood that the cost of silence was greater than the cost of courage. She understood that the danger of doing nothing had become more serious than the risk of stepping forward. That revelation changes everything in a person's spirit. Once you see that hesitation itself can become a form of loss, you stop romanticizing delay. You stop treating indecision like harmless caution. You begin to understand that obedience is not the reward for perfect calm. It is the decision to move while your heart still feels the weight of the moment. If this message is finding language for something your spirit has been wrestling with, let it settle deeply. Let it move you closer to your own answer. And if this channel has been strengthening your walk, take a quiet moment to like, share, and subscribe so this word can keep reaching the people who need it. And if you feel led to support the work further, there is also a donate link in the description. Not because pressure should guide you, but because obedience grows in simple acts of response. Esther's story keeps reminding you that your future is not only shaped by what you survive, it is shaped by what you stop delaying. The blessing tied to your life is not asking for a flawless performance. It is asking for a willing heart that finally understands that waiting too long can cost more than stepping forward afraid. The war over your attention is more serious than most people realize. Because attention is not a small thing in the life of a chosen person. Attention is direction. Attention is agreement. Attention is what decides which voice gets room inside your mind long enough to shape your next step. That is why the enemy does not always begin by attacking your calling directly. Many times the attack begins by scattering your focus, exhausting your inner life, and making everything feel equally loud until you can no longer recognize what carries true weight. Once your attention is fragmented, your discernment weakens. Once your discernment weakens, urgency fades. Once urgency fades, destiny can sit near you while you remain too distracted to respond. This is exactly why Esther's story keeps speaking with such force. Before her defining moment fully unfolds, there is already a battle around timing, around perception, around whether she will see clearly enough to understand what kind of hour she is living in. From the outside, palace life can look polished and settled, but hidden beneath comfort is pressure, and hidden beneath pressure is the temptation to remain passive. Esther could have let the atmosphere around her numb her spirit. She could have adjusted to luxury so completely that she forgot the seriousness of the crisis unfolding beyond her walls. She could have let distance become distraction. That is how spiritual battles often work. They do not always pull you into obvious darkness. Sometimes they simply wrap you in enough noise, enough routine, enough self-concern, enough mental fatigue that you stop paying attention to what heaven is emphasizing. You have felt this in your own life. There are times when you know something matters, yet your mind keeps being pulled in 20 directions. Your body is present, but your spirit feels blurred. You sit down to pray and suddenly everything else becomes urgent. You try to listen inwardly and random thoughts begin marching through your head. You try to rest and your mind refuses to settle. You try to focus on what God is saying and old fears, petty worries, unfinished tasks, emotional residue, and invisible pressure all begin speaking at once. This is not always random. Sometimes this is the battle. Sometimes the conflict is not around whether you love God. Sometimes the conflict is around whether you can remain spiritually attentive long enough to hear what He is saying before distraction steals the moment. Esther's challenge was not merely external danger, it was internal clarity. Could she recognize that this was not a normal season? Could she understand that her position was not accidental? Could she resist the pull of comfort long enough to let holy urgency rise stronger than fear? That is the question before many chosen people now. Not whether you have potential, not whether you have value, not whether God has called you. The deeper question is whether your attention is available to the call, or whether it has been consumed by lesser things. The enemy understands that a distracted person often delays what a broken person might still pursue. A person in pain may still cry out to God with sharp sincerity, but a distracted person can drift for months without noticing how far their heart has wandered from focused obedience. This is why spiritual discipline matters more than appearance. Esther had to become quiet enough inside herself to receive the weight of the moment. She had to stop thinking only about immediate safety and begin seeing the larger picture. That shift does not happen in a noisy soul. It happens when the heart becomes still enough to recognize that heaven is pressing on a particular point. You are being invited into that same stillness now. Not a passive stillness that does nothing, but a strong stillness that refuses to let chaos rule your inner world. A stillness that says, I will not let every passing fear become a prophet over my future. A stillness that says, I will not let exhaustion interpret my calling for me. A stillness that says, I will not give my best attention to what drains me while giving God only my leftovers. The war over your attention also explains why some seasons feel strangely heavy, even when nothing dramatic seems to be happening on the surface. The weight is not always proof that you are failing. Sometimes it is proof that something important is near. Esther's defining moment did not arrive because everything around her became easy. It arrived with tension. It arrived with stakes. It arrived with the possibility of loss. That is often how sacred moments appear. They do not always feel convenient. They often come wrapped in pressure because pressure exposes what matters. Pressure reveals what you truly trust. Pressure reveals where your mind runs first. Pressure reveals whether your spirit has been trained to listen above the noise. And yet there is grace in this. God does not reveal the battle around your attention just to leave you there struggling. He reveals it so you can reclaim ground. He reveals it so you can stop calling distraction normal when it has been quietly draining your strength. He reveals it so you can understand that focus is not merely a personality trait. It is stewardship. It is part of how you guard your assignment. It is part of how you protect the blessing tied to your obedience. Esther could not afford to treat her moment casually, and neither can you. Too much is connected to your ability to notice what God is highlighting and remain present with it long enough for courage to mature. This is why you must become intentional about what shapes your mind and what helps you come back into clarity. There are practical tools that some people use to help settle mental noise, improve concentration, reduce stress, and create space for deeper focus, especially in seasons when the mind feels overloaded and scattered. One product some listeners may find interesting is the Genius Wave, also called Genius Song, a short audio built around brainwave entrainment using sound patterns associated in its description with theta and gamma states. And it is presented as a simple 7-minute daily listening practice intended to support concentration, memory, creativity, calm, and clearer thinking. For someone who feels mentally foggy, restless, or constantly pulled in too many directions, that kind of support may be one practical way to help create more inner space for reflection and focus. If you want to look into it, please check only the official source linked in the description or pinned comment, because imitation pages do exist and it is wise to be careful. Read the official details for yourself and use only the official source if you decide to try it. But deeper than any tool, remember this truth. Your attention is sacred, your focus matters, and what heaven is trying to awaken in you must not be surrendered to distraction. By now you can feel the pattern more clearly. What first looked like interruption has revealed itself as invitation. What looked like delay has exposed the danger of hesitation. And what looked like ordinary distraction has shown itself to be part of a deeper battle over your obedience. This is where the signs begin to matter. Because when God is drawing a chosen person toward a decisive moment, He does not leave them without witness. He knows how to place confirmation around the path, not always in ways that flatter the flesh, but in ways that steady the spirit. The problem is not that signs are absent. The problem is that many people expect them to arrive in forms so dramatic that they overlook the quieter language of divine timing. Esther's story is full of this quieter language. Nothing about her journey is random. The hidden years, the unusual transition into the palace, the rise into influence, the sudden crisis that makes her position meaningful, the voice of Mordecai awakening her to the seriousness of the hour. All of it carries the fingerprint of a God who arranges moments with precision. Esther does not receive a blazing sign in the sky. She receives something deeper and in many ways more demanding. She begins to recognize a pattern that can no longer be dismissed as coincidence. The pieces fit too precisely. The hour feels too weighty. The place she occupies suddenly reveals a purpose larger than comfort. larger than personal security, larger than the life she may have assumed she was building. That is often how a true sign works. It does not merely excite you. It aligns things in a way that confronts you with responsibility. You have seen this in your own life, though perhaps you did not always name it. There are times when the same truth reaches you through different doors. A scripture rises in your spirit, then a conversation echoes it, then a burden in prayer deepens it, then an unexpected moment in your day seems to underline it again. You try to move past it, yet it returns with unusual clarity. You tell yourself you are overthinking, but the weight remains. You try to explain it away as mood, timing, or coincidence, yet something inside you keeps recognizing the same thread. That is because divine confirmation often comes through repetition with meaning. God is not stuttering when he repeats himself. He is being merciful to a heart that needs courage to answer. Esther had to come into that recognition. She had to stop viewing her life as disconnected events and begin seeing that heaven had woven a pattern beneath everything. This is essential for a chosen person because scattered thinking creates spiritual dullness. When you view your life as random fragments, you become passive. You stop looking for purpose in the placement. You stop asking why certain doors opened, why certain burdens intensified, why certain words keep returning. But when the Spirit opens your eyes, the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. What once looked ordinary begins to carry divine weight. What once looked accidental begins to reveal intentional design. And suddenly you realize that this message, this stirring, this pressure, this repeated call to pay attention is not random at all. One of the clearest signs that a message is meant for you is that it exposes something you were trying not to face. It does not merely comfort your emotions. It reaches into the exact area where you have been hesitating. Esther could have listened to Mordecai and still protected her excuses. She could have admired the truth without yielding to it, yet the word that reached her did more than inform her. It uncovered the point of decision. That is how heaven confirms a moment. God shines light not only on your promise, but also on the place where your will must answer. Real confirmation does not let you hide comfortably behind vague spirituality. It narrows the focus. It reveals where obedience is waiting. Another sign is that the message awakens both sobriety and hope at the same time. False urgency only produces panic. Divine urgency produces clarity. Esther is not merely frightened into action. She becomes anchored by the understanding that her life has meaning in this hour. Yes, the risk is real. Yes, the decision is costly. But the revelation also gives her strength because she begins to see that she was not placed where she is without purpose. That same combination may be happening in you now. Part of you feels the seriousness of what God is pressing on, yet another part of you feels strangely steadied by it. You are not merely anxious. You are being awakened. That difference matters. Panic scatters the soul. Clarity gathers it. This is why the scripture says, "The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord." Psalm chapter 37, verse 23. Ordered, not random, not accidental, not meaningless. Ordered. Esther's steps were ordered even when she could not yet interpret them. Her losses did not throw God off course. Her hidden years did not cancel what heaven intended. Her access was ordered. Her burden was ordered. Even the timing of the crisis revealed how precisely God had arranged what human eyes might have called chance. And if Esther's steps were ordered, then you must consider that your own repeated moments of conviction, your unusual inner stirring, your inability to escape this message may also be part of something ordered. The signs meant for you may not look spectacular to everyone else. They may come as a deep inner knowing you cannot shake. They may come as a holy discomfort that will not let you return to sleep. They may come as a sentence from Scripture that suddenly feels alive enough to follow you through the day. They may come as the realization that what once seemed distant has now become immediate. Esther's sign was not only that she was in the palace. Her sign was that the palace suddenly became a place of decision. What had once looked like a destination became an assignment. That shift in understanding changed everything. And perhaps that is what is happening in you now. Places, gifts, relationships, and opportunities you once viewed one way are beginning to reveal a deeper purpose. You're starting to sense that this season is not merely about maintaining life as it is. It is about discerning what this hour requires. The signs are finding you because God is kind enough to confirm before He calls you to move. But He is also clear enough not to confirm forever while you remain unwilling to answer. Esther had enough light to know the moment had found her. You also have enough light to know this is not coincidence. So let the signs do what they were sent to do. Let them gather your scattered thoughts. Let them interrupt the story fear has been telling you. Let them remind you that heaven has not been absent in your hidden years. The pattern is there. The timing is there, and the witness is there, and the reason it feels so personal is because it is. This word is not brushing past your life. It is meeting it directly, pressing gently but firmly on the truth that God has been signaling for a while now. You were meant to hear this, not so you could admire the moment from a distance, but so you could recognize that the hour has come closer than you thought. There comes a point in every appointed story where the door is no longer merely visible. It is present. It is near enough to touch. It is no longer a possibility you can discuss in theory, but a moment standing directly in front of you, asking for a response that cannot be borrowed from anyone else. This is where Esther arrives, and this is where many chosen ones tremble. Because seeing the door is one thing, but understanding that it will not remain open forever is another. The human heart often wants endless time to decide, endless room to hesitate, endless chances to revisit the same call without consequence. But sacred timing does not always work that way. There are moments when delay becomes disobedience simply because the window itself carries divine weight. Esther had already received the warning. She had already felt the pressure rising. She had already begun to understand that her life in the palace was not a random turn of events but a placement connected to something much larger than personal comfort. Yet even with all that understanding, the decisive moment still required movement. She could not live forever in recognition alone. She had to act while the opportunity to act still held meaning. That is what makes this part of the story so piercing. The door before her was real, but it was also time-sensitive. The crisis around her people was not waiting for her emotions to become tidy. The need was immediate. The hour was alive. And the same truth often applies to your own life. There are seasons when God gives you a space to reflect, but there are also seasons when reflection must give way to response. This is difficult because you have been trained by pain to move carefully. You know what disappointment feels like. You know what it costs to step into something too quickly. You know how vulnerable obedience can make you feel when the outcome is not fully visible. So part of you wants one more sign, one more day, one more wave of confirmation, one more reason that removes the trembling. But the deeper walk of faith is not built on the removal of trembling. It is built on trusting God enough to move while your heart still knows the cost. Esther did not step toward the king because the risk vanished. She stepped because the call grew heavier than the fear. That is a very different thing. There is a holy urgency in this section of her journey. Not panic, not emotional frenzy. Urgency. The kind that comes when your spirit recognizes that the moment in front of you is not ordinary. The kind that tells you this is not the hour to remain casual, not the hour to drift, not the hour to act as though time will simply rearrange itself around your hesitation. Doors from God are merciful, but they are not always permanent. Some opportunities are deeply tied to timing because they are connected to larger movements beyond your individual comfort. Esther's door was not only about her destiny, it was tied to the preservation of others. That is another reason your obedience matters more than you think. What you answer or ignore may affect more than your private life. There may be people, outcomes, and future mercies attached to your willingness to move when heaven says now. This is why readiness matters long before the moment arrives. Esther could not afford to be spiritually asleep when her hour came. She had to become sober enough to recognize what was happening and brave enough to prepare herself accordingly. When she called for fasting, she was not trying to manufacture drama. She was aligning herself. She was acknowledging that a door this serious required more than human impulse. It required surrender. It required spiritual focus. It required the kind of inward yielding that says, I will not meet this moment casually. You need that same posture. When a significant door opens before you, do not approach it half-present, half-distracted, half-willing. Approach it with the full awareness that heaven may be asking for an answer through your life. One of the saddest things that can happen to a chosen person is not that a door never appears. It is that a door appears and is treated as though it will still be there after endless postponement. Familiarity is dangerous in sacred seasons because it dulls the sense of wonder and seriousness. Esther could have grown so used to the palace that she forgot how unusual her placement really was. You can grow so used to your burdens, your gifts, your convictions, and even your repeated promptings from God that you stop honoring them with action. What was once astonishing begins to feel common. What was once urgent begins to feel negotiable. That is how windows are missed. Not always through rebellion, but through over-familiarity with what should have been treated as holy. Yet grace is speaking to you now, so that familiarity does not win. Grace is reminding you that the door in front of you is not empty. It carries consequence. It carries possibility. It carries the kind of shift that can rearrange more than one chapter of your life. Esther's courage did not come from pretending the door was safe. It came from understanding that refusal would cost more than risk. Once that truth settled in her, the path became clear. Not easy, but clear. And clarity is often the mercy God gives just before a decisive act. He may not show you every detail beyond the threshold, but He will show you enough to know that staying still is no longer faithfulness. Perhaps that is exactly where this message is finding you. You have enough light to know what matters. You have enough witness to know this is not random. You have enough stirring in your spirit to realize that this opportunity, this call, this act of obedience, this needed surrender, this overdue response has reached the point where it must be faced honestly. And if this message has been walking with you through that process, helping steady your spirit and sharpen your discernment, take a moment to like, share, and subscribe so these words can continue reaching others who are standing at their own threshold. And if you feel led to support the work in a deeper way, there is also a donate option in the description. Not as pressure, but as a simple act of partnership in helping these messages keep moving where they are needed. Then return your heart to the greater truth. Esther's story does not celebrate a door merely because it opened. It celebrates the courage to walk toward it while it was still the appointed hour. The doorway would not remain theoretical forever. It had to be entered. In the same way, Some moments in your life are not meant to be studied endlessly from a distance. They are meant to be answered. This window will not stay suspended forever just because fear wants more time. The hour has dignity. The call has weight. And the blessing tied to your obedience is waiting on the other side of the response you can no longer afford to postpone. Once Esther crosses the threshold in her spirit, everything begins to shift. And this is the beauty of obedience that many people do not understand until they live it. Obedience does not always change the entire world in a single instant, but it changes the room you are standing in. It changes the atmosphere around your life. It changes the posture of your heart. It changes the authority with which you carry what God has placed inside you. Before Esther acts, the palace is a place of tension, uncertainty, and concealed pressure. After she decides to move, even before the final outcome is visible, something powerful has already happened. She is no longer merely surviving inside her assignment. She is standing inside it. That is the immediate shift obedience creates. It moves you out of passive awareness and into active alignment. It breaks the paralysis that comes from overthinking, from circling, from postponing, from living in the exhausting space between conviction and action. You know that space. It is the place where your spirit senses what must be done, but your emotions keep negotiating. It is the place where you feel the weight of the call. Yet something in you still hopes you can avoid the cost. That middle space drains strength because it keeps the soul divided. A divided soul becomes tired quickly. A divided soul loses clarity. A divided soul mistakes delay for safety. But the moment obedience becomes real, division begins to close. The heart gathers itself. The mind steadies. The spirit rises. Esther's famous words reveal this gathered strength with stunning clarity. She says, "So will I go in unto the king, which is not according to the law, and if I perish, I perish." Esther chapter 4, verse 16. Notice how much is carried in that sentence. There is no denial of danger. There is no pretending that the risk has disappeared. There is no artificial confidence, no performance, no shallow optimism. There is simply surrender joined to courage. That is why the words carry such force. Esther is not obeying because the path is easy. She is obeying because the call has become more sacred to her than her need to preserve control. That is the turning point for every chosen person. The outer world may not change in a second, but the inner throne changes hands. Fear is no longer ruling the decision. This is what obedience unlocks immediately. It restores order inside you. It takes the part of your life that has been trapped under hesitation and brings it back under the authority of faith. It does not mean you feel nothing. It means your feelings are no longer the final judge of what is right. Esther still understands the cost, but she is no longer being led by the cost. She is being led by purpose. There is a holy strength in that kind of movement. When a person reaches the place where they say yes to God with full awareness of the weight involved, heaven meets that yes with unusual grace, and that grace often shows itself before the final breakthrough arrives. This is important because many people think obedience only matters if immediate visible results follow. But obedience is already fruitful before public evidence appears, because it reorders the invisible foundation of your life. The peace that enters after a true yes is different from ordinary relief. It is deeper. It comes not because every outcome is secured, but because you are no longer fighting the truth you already know. There is profound torment in resisting what God has made clear. There is profound peace in finally yielding to it. Esther's situation remains serious, but she is no longer trapped in helplessness. She has moved from being acted upon by the moment to participating in what God is doing through the moment. This is what some of you need to hear with all your heart. The breakthrough may not always begin with a public miracle. Sometimes it begins with the restoration of your inner authority. It begins when you stop abandoning your convictions every time fear raises its voice. It begins when you stop treating obedience like an extreme option and start treating it like your natural response to God's leading. It begins when your soul remembers who it belongs to. Esther's courage is not magic. It is alignment. And alignment releases power because a life in agreement with God carries a steadiness that confusion cannot imitate. Then something else happens. Obedience changes how others encounter you. Esther does not enter the king's presence as the same inwardly divided woman she might have been before her decision ripened. She enters as someone who has settled the matter before God. That gives her a different weight. People can feel when a person has become inwardly resolved. There is a calm seriousness to them. There is a clarity in their words. There is a groundedness in their presence. The room may not know how to name it, but it can sense that this person is no longer moving from panic. They are moving from purpose. Esther's obedience changes the room because it changes her first. This is one reason the enemy fights obedience so fiercely. He knows that once you move in real surrender, many chains lose their grip at once. The loop of hesitation begins to break. The fog around your focus begins to clear. The fear that looked enormous starts losing its absolute power. Not because you become invincible in yourself, but because obedience places you under a different flow of grace. It brings your life into cooperation with what heaven has already been urging. That cooperation matters. It is where spiritual momentum begins. The same person who felt trapped yesterday can feel a new strength today. Not because their circumstances are instantly perfected, but because their yes has opened the way for God to move differently through them. Esther's story also reminds you that obedience does not need to be loud to be world-changing. It can begin in fasting, in prayer, in a decision made quietly but firmly before God. It can begin in the unseen place where you stop arguing with the call and finally embrace it. Yet from that unseen decision, entire outcomes can shift. That is how heaven works so often. The visible turning point is prepared by an invisible surrender. The public change is often preceded by a private consecration. The room shifts because the heart shifted first. So if you have been waiting for some dramatic sign that you are ready, perhaps this is the sign instead. Readiness is often born in the moment you stop worshiping certainty and start honoring obedience. Esther did not wait to become untouched by fear. She allowed obedience to rise higher than fear. And once that happened, the room around her life could never remain quite the same. The king's court, the fate of her people, the unfolding of her purpose. All of it begins to move because one woman decides that surrender to God is worth more than the fragile illusion of self-protection. That is what obedience unlocks immediately. It unlocks alignment, authority, peace, momentum, and the kind of spiritual movement that begins quietly in the heart and then spreads outward until even the room has to respond. There is a kind of pain that comes from being close to change and still not entering it. You know that pain because it leaves a person exhausted in a very particular way. It is not the exhaustion of total defeat. It is the exhaustion of almost healed, almost free, almost seen, almost chosen in the visible sense, almost stepping through the door, almost saying yes, almost believing again, almost receiving what your spirit has been reaching for across so many weary seasons. That kind of almost can become its own cycle if it is not broken, because the soul starts expecting nearness without possession. It starts learning how to survive at the edge of blessing without fully stepping into it. That is where many people quietly settle. and they do not call it settling because they still have language for faith. But inwardly they have made peace with the border. Esther's story refuses to let you stay at the border. By this point, she has already crossed the inner line of obedience. She has already stepped forward when silence would have been easier. She has already chosen courage over comfort. But the beauty of her story is that obedience does not end with a single brave moment and then dissolve into passivity again. It continues. It matures. It presses through until the reversal is complete. This is crucial for you to understand because many chosen ones break the cycle of delay in one area and then stop too soon. They take the first brave step, but they do not continue with the same surrendered consistency needed to carry the breakthrough to fullness. Esther teaches you that almost is broken not only by starting, but by staying yielded until the matter is brought through. Think about the emotional tension she must have carried. The first approach to the king was costly enough, yet the full outcome for her people still required wisdom, persistence, and the willingness to remain engaged with the assignment. This is where immature faith often becomes tired. It says, I already obeyed once. Why is there more? I already showed courage. Why is the process still unfolding? I already trusted God. Why is the answer not fully visible yet? But Esther's life shows you that some reversals unfold in stages. The first yes opens the way. The next yeses keep walking in it. The first act of obedience breaks paralysis. The following acts establish victory. If you stop too soon, you can stand near the edge of your inheritance and still fail to enter the fullness of what God intended. That is why this section matters so deeply. The cycle of almost receiving must end in your life. You were not created to keep standing near promises with a trembling hand that never closes around them. You were not called to live forever in partial breakthroughs, temporary clarity, and repeated approaches that never become possession. There is a holy stubbornness required here, not the stubbornness of pride, but the stubbornness of faith, the kind that says, I will not retreat into passivity after coming this far. The kind that says, I will not let fear re-enter through the back door once obedience has already opened the front one. The kind that says, I will remain present with what God is doing until the breakthrough has room to fully arrive. Esther embodies that kind of faith. She does not disappear after the first courageous act. She remains attentive. She remains involved. She keeps moving within the space obedience created. And that is often where true transformation happens. Not only in dramatic public moments, but in sustained yieldedness. Many people admire boldness, but heaven also honors endurance. The person who remains obedient after the first wave of emotion has passed is the one who truly breaks old cycles. Esther is not simply a woman of one brave sentence. She becomes a woman who carries wisdom, timing, and perseverance all the way through the turning of the story. This is where your own life may be speaking back to you. How many times have you come close, then withdrawn? How many times have you sensed a shift, then doubted it? How many times have you felt the beginning of freedom, then returned to old patterns before the new path became strong under your feet? How many times have you mistaken process for denial and stepped away too early? The enemy loves that pattern because almost can look spiritual from a distance. It can mimic movement while keeping you from fullness. It can give you enough to talk about hope while quietly stealing the actual possession of what God was bringing near. But this is the hour where that pattern is being exposed for what it is. Not your destiny, not your portion, not your permanent story. The scripture says, the Jews had light and gladness and joy and honor. Esther chapter 8, verse 16. Notice the fullness in that line. Light, gladness, joy, honor. Not merely survival, not merely relief, not merely escape by a narrow margin, and full reversal carries evidence. It has substance. It has atmosphere. It has the unmistakable scent of God turning mourning toward celebration. Esther's obedience did not end in a private sigh of maybe. It moved toward visible change. It moved toward vindication. It moved toward a different condition than the one fear had threatened. That verse matters because it reminds you that God's answer is not always minimal. When He reverses a thing, He knows how to do it with fullness that reaches beyond what the enemy expected to steal. So let this truth press against every weary place in you that has grown used to almost. You are not destined to be forever approaching your blessing without embracing it. You are not fated to spend your whole life circling what God promised while wondering why you can never quite enter. Esther's story is a witness against that lie. Her journey says that when a chosen person responds, remains yielded, and refuses to retreat into fear after obedience begins, the cycle can break completely. What once looked impossible can become established. What once looked threatened can become protected. What once looked delayed can arrive with honor. Comment I receive if this is the line where you decide almost ends now. Let those words be simple, but let them carry weight in your spirit. Because this is not about emotional excitement. It is about agreement. It is about refusing to rehearse old disappointments as though they are prophecy over your future. It is about understanding that God did not bring you this far to train you in nearness without possession. He brought you this far to teach you perseverance, discernment, and the courage to remain in alignment until the thing He began stands in the earth with undeniable evidence. And once that cycle breaks, something else happens. You stop living like a person who expects loss at the final moment. You begin to carry yourself differently. Your prayers sound different. Your inner life becomes steadier. Your hope becomes less fragile. Esther's story leaves you with that image, not of a woman forever trembling at the threshold, but of a woman who stayed present long enough to watch God bring reversal into the open. That is the invitation before you now. Do not pull back. Do not shrink into the old pattern. Do not let almost speak louder than promise. Stay with God in this movement. Stay with obedience in this hour. Stay with faith until the cycle is broken so fully that light, gladness, joy, and honor can finally name the place where fear once tried to write your ending. By the time you reach this point, the question is no longer whether you have been called. The deeper question is whether you are willing to live as someone who has been called. That is where chosen identity becomes real. It is one thing to hear that you are set apart. It is another thing to carry the weight, the discipline, the restraint, and the responsibility that come with that truth. Many people enjoy the language of destiny as long as it sounds like comfort, elevation, or reward. Far fewer are prepared for the inward maturity required to stand inside what God has spoken without collapsing under the pressure of it. Esther teaches you that chosen identity is not a costume. It is not a mood. It is not a brief emotional high. It is a way of standing, seeing, speaking, and yielding that has been forged through hidden preparation and tested through costly obedience. When Esther first enters the story, much about her life seems shaped by forces beyond her control. She is carried by events, placed in unfamiliar spaces and drawn into circumstances she did not script. Yet by the later chapters, something has changed. She is no longer only the person events happen to. She has become a woman who can carry influence without being ruled by vanity, who can hold access without forgetting purpose, and who can speak with courage because her heart has been anchored in something deeper than self-preservation. This is what spiritual maturity looks like. It is not loudness. It is not performance. It is a settled strength that has learned to stay humble before God while standing firm before men. That is the kind of identity heaven has been forming in you. Not a fragile identity that depends on applause, and not a fearful identity that shrinks every time opposition appears. A chosen identity is strong because it has been purified through process. Esther did not become who she was in a single moment of bravery alone. Her courage was the visible expression of quieter inner formation. She had learned restraint. She had learned timing. She had learned how to hold her place without rushing ahead of wisdom. She had learned that favor is not given so pride can grow, but so purpose can move. These are not small lessons. They are the very traits that allow a chosen person to carry responsibility without becoming corrupted by it. This matters because many people want the blessing but have not yet embraced the identity needed to sustain it. They want the open door, but not the inner government required once the door opens. They want influence, but not the consecration that keeps influence from becoming self-worship. They want to be seen, but not the discipline of remaining clean in heart when visibility increases. Esther's life challenges that shallow desire. She shows you that being chosen means being entrusted, and being entrusted means your inner life must be able to hold what your outer life is receiving. God does not merely want to lift you, He wants to shape you so that when the lifting comes, it does not destroy what He has placed in you. This is why your hidden years were not wasted. They were not empty delays. They were classrooms. They were places where God was teaching you what could not be learned through quick success alone. He was teaching you how to listen beneath noise. He was teaching you how to recognize timing. He was teaching you how to endure misunderstanding without losing your softness before Him. He was teaching you how to carry pain without letting pain become your identity. Esther's rise would have been dangerous without Esther's formation. In the same way, some things were delayed in your life not because heaven forgot you, but because your spirit was being strengthened to carry them well. There is also something deeply beautiful about the way Esther holds both humility and authority together. She does not become small in the presence of her assignment, but neither does she become intoxicated by her position. This is rare and holy. Some people shrink when the call becomes weighty. Others become proud when the call becomes visible. Esther does neither. She remains aware that what she carries is serious, yet she also remains aware that it was entrusted by God. That balance is part of chosen identity. You stop acting as though your calling is your own invention, and you also stop apologizing for the fact that God has marked you. Humility does not mean pretending you are nothing. Humility means knowing exactly where your strength comes from and using it in reverence. The scripture says, "For if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time, then shall their enlargement and deliverance arise." Esther chapter 4, verse 14. That word reveals something powerful about chosen identity. Esther was living in a moment where her response mattered. She could not hide behind false modesty. She could not pretend her placement had no purpose. She had to understand that when God positions a person, that position carries accountability. In the same way, your life is not meant to be lived as though your gifts, discernment, voice, and opportunities are accidental extras. They are part of what heaven has entrusted to you for the sake of this hour. That realization changes how you move. You begin to carry yourself with a steadier spirit. You stop begging the world for permission to be what God has already called forth in you. You stop shrinking to fit rooms that were never meant to define you. You stop speaking as though your life is random and start honoring the fact that your steps have been watched over with intention. Esther became powerful not because she demanded recognition, but because she recognized responsibility. She understood that chosen identity was not merely about what she could receive. It was about what she was now required to carry with faithfulness. And this is where your own spirit is being strengthened now. You are being called to step fully into the identity that matches your assignment. Not halfway, not occasionally, fully. That does not mean you become harsh. It does not mean you pretend to know everything. It means you stop living beneath what God has formed in you. It means you stop treating your spiritual discernment like an inconvenience. It means you stop acting surprised every time the call on your life asks for courage. Esther's story has been preparing you for this recognition all along. The hidden one becomes the positioned one. The positioned one becomes the courageous one. The courageous one becomes the carrier of deliverance. And through all of it, her identity deepens until she is no longer merely reacting to events. She is inhabiting who God prepared her to be. That is the invitation now resting on you. Stand in who God has been shaping. Stand in the maturity that pain tried to interrupt but could not destroy. Stand in the authority that obedience has been building quietly through every surrendered chapter. Stand in the humility that knows this is God's work, and stand in the responsibility that knows your yes still matters. Esther's life proves that chosen identity is not fantasy. It is the fruit of hidden preparation meeting appointed timing. You have been shaped to carry weight. You have been trained to recognize the hour. You have been brought through enough to know that the hand of God does not waste process. So do not return to smaller ways of seeing yourself. Do not retreat into versions of you that fear has outgrown. The story has carried you too far for that. You are not simply near your calling now. You are being asked to stand inside it with the kind of humility, courage, and spiritual maturity that reveals you were being prepared for this all along. Now you can see it with clearer eyes. Your blessing was never tied to passive wishing. It was never tied to endless delay, endless analysis, endless almost, or the habit of standing near the door while calling that nearness enough. Your blessing has always been tied to response. It has been tied to the sacred moment when your spirit finally agrees with what heaven has been pressing on your life. It has been tied to the hour when you stop negotiating with fear. Stop shrinking under old memories and stop excusing your hesitation and say with a steady heart that you will not miss what God is placing before you now. That is the revelation at the center of this whole journey. What is meant for you is not released through perfect feelings. It is released through surrendered movement. For many seasons you may have thought the delay meant the blessing had gone somewhere else, that perhaps you had cried too long, stumbled too much, waited too late, or lost too much ground to recover what heaven once intended. But the truth is deeper and stronger than that. God has not been playing with your life. He has been preparing your life. He has been shaping your inner world so that when the blessing arrives, you can recognize it, receive it, carry it, and remain faithful under its weight. Some things had to mature in you before they could safely rest on you. Some things had to be healed in you before they could flow through you. Some things had to be broken off your thinking before you could step into what was waiting with clean hands and a steady heart. That is why this message has not only been about urgency, it has also been about mercy. Mercy is what keeps calling your attention back before another season is lost. Mercy is what refuses to let you sleep through your own appointed hour. Mercy is what keeps repeating the truth until your spirit can no longer pretend it has not heard. And mercy is what has brought you here now, to this final place of recognition, where you understand that blessing is not a random event falling out of the sky onto an unprepared life. Blessing is often the meeting point between divine provision and human obedience. God sends the door, but you must walk toward it. God sends the moment, but you must answer it. God sends the stirring, but you must stop silencing it with excuses that no longer deserve room in your life. There is something beautiful that happens when a chosen one finally accepts this. The heart becomes simpler. The inner war begins to settle. The mind no longer burns energy fighting what the spirit already knows. You stop demanding a risk-free path and start asking for strength to obey. You stop measuring every decision by comfort and start measuring it by faithfulness. You stop saying someday to things God is breathing on today. And in that shift, blessing begins to feel less like a fantasy and more like the natural fruit of alignment. Not easy fruit, not shallow fruit, but holy fruit. The kind that carries peace with it. The kind that does not have to be forced into being because it grows where obedience makes room for it. So let this truth land deeply. The blessing tied to your life is not only about material increase, visible success, or public change, though God is fully able to bring provision, restoration, favor, and open doors in the visible realm. The deeper blessing is that your life comes back into right order under His hand. The deeper blessing is that you hear clearly again. The deeper blessing is that you stop living divided. The deeper blessing is that your spirit becomes strong enough to answer when heaven calls. And from that place, other blessings begin to find their proper place. Peace returns. Clarity returns. Courage returns. Direction returns. The weight of confusion begins to lift because your yes has created room for God to move in ways delay could not sustain. Let this become a prayer in you now. Father, in the name of Jesus, I thank you for every person under this word right now. I ask that you quiet the noise around their heart and strengthen what you have been awakening inside them. Where fear has delayed them, give them courage. Where disappointment has made them careful, give them fresh trust. Where confusion has scattered their focus, gather them again under your peace. Let every chain of hesitation begin to break. Let every lying voice that says they missed their moment be silenced by your truth. Remind them that your mercy still calls, your wisdom still leads, and your hand still knows how to position them for what you have prepared. Heal the weary places, lift the heavy places, cleanse the places where unbelief settled after long pain, and let a holy yes rise in them, not forced, not shallow, not emotional for one night only, but rooted, steady, and real. Open their eyes to the doors you are setting before them. Give them discernment to recognize what is from you and what is not. Protect them from counterfeit paths, from delay disguised as wisdom, and from fear disguised as caution. Let your favor rest on their obedience. Let your peace guard their mind. Let your strength hold them steady in the hour of response. And let the blessing tied to surrender begin to unfold in a way that brings you glory and brings their life into greater wholeness. Amen. Carry that prayer with you. Return to it when old fear tries to speak again. Return to it when the enemy tries to convince you that this moment was only emotion. Return to it when hesitation begins whispering that tomorrow would be easier. Tomorrow is not always the holiest word. Sometimes now is. Sometimes this is the hour heaven has marked. Sometimes this is the moment that separates a long season of almost from a new season of possession. Sometimes this is where the cycle truly breaks. And if these messages have been feeding your spirit, steadying your heart, and helping you hear God more clearly in a noisy season, take a moment to like, share, and subscribe so this word can keep reaching others who are hungry for direction, healing, and courage. And if you feel led to support this work in a deeper way, there is a donate option in the description. Give only as you are led with peace. But know that every act of support helps keep these messages moving outward to the people who need them. Above all, leave this final section with this settled in your spirit. You are not standing before an empty call. You are standing before a response that matters. You are not being teased by distant hope. You are being invited into living alignment. You are not too broken to obey, too late to answer, or too overlooked to be entrusted with what God has prepared. The blessing is real. The moment is real. The call is real. And the God who brought this word to your ears is fully able to complete what he began in your life. So stand up inwardly, gather your faith, refuse the language of almost, refuse the comfort of delay, refuse the old agreement with fear, then answer God with the kind of sincerity that changes the direction of an entire season. Because what is tied to your yes is greater than what tried to keep you from giving it. Beloved chosen one, rest in this for a moment. You have heard the warning, the invitation, the awakening, and the promise. Now let peace settle over what God has stirred. You do not need to strive in panic. You do not need to force what only obedience can open. Just stay near his voice, keep your heart soft, and take the next faithful step he places before you. Let tonight be the night you stop calling yourself delayed and start calling yourself aligned. Let this be the chapter where your spirit becomes calm, clear, and ready. What belongs to you under God's hand will not need fear to obtain it, only faith to receive it. So breathe deeply, release the weight of old regret, and walk forward with quiet confidence. Heaven has not forgotten your name. The call is still on your life, the door is still before you, and grace is still strong enough to lead you through it.